So today we're going to make black beans in a crockpot or slow cooker. Now the same recipe I'm going to show you can make in an instant pot or pressure cooker or on stovetop or however else you want. I think a benefit of the crockpot is you can cook it on low for about 12 hours. And when you do that, you get a different texture on beans than you would with a high heat, high pressure. And it's a much better texture. It's a chewier texture with kind of the sort of shell of the bean intact. And so I encourage you to at least try it in a crock pot to see if you can taste the difference when doing that. So we'll go ahead and get started. Alright, as we start here, we're just going to talk a little bit about that ingredient list. I think you see the bone broth there. When you use that, 6 cups of that will give you 50 to 60 grams of protein, and I think that the flavor is a little bit richer than a chicken, pork, beef, or vegetable stock or broth, but it doesn't affect the overall flavor all that much. The main ingredient that does affect the flavor more than anything else is going to be the caramelized onion. And it doesn't really matter how you cut it, but notice that I have 1.5 times the amount of raw onion compared to bean. So if I have 2 pounds of beans, I have 3 pounds of onions to start. And so the spices here don't really affect it a lot. You're going to want to have smoked paprika, cumin, onion and garlic powder, oregano. These are all pretty standard flavors that you're not going to really even notice in most bean recipes. What is very important, again, the onions. So nothing will affect the overall flavor as much as the onion. And I say in here, caramelized onion. And so I'm showing you, I'm spending a fair amount of time on the onion here. So when somebody sees caramelized onion, right now it's about 30 minutes in. And, I'll keep looking here. It's about maybe 45 minutes in. So you can leave it on maybe a medium heat for the first 20 minutes or so to cook some of the water out, and then turn it way down to low, and just wait. And every 5 minutes or so, give it a stir. Here it's about an hour into it. It's not a lot of work, but it just takes a lot of time to caramelize an onion. So now it's about an hour and 45. And if you just keep on going and going, and you go from that 3 pounds down to probably a quarter pound or less of ultimate caramelized onion. So this is how it should look when it's done. And there's really not much left. And whenever it's done, you just throw it in with the beans. So I started the beans earlier and also put in the carrot. You can substitute sweet potato instead of that, and the celery and the corn, and just got it going. And so whenever the onions get done, you just throw them in there and get them going. And I kind of want to spend some time showing this as well. I mentioned it in the beginning that this is on low for a long period of time. You can do the same thing on high and finish it in about 6 hours or 8 hours, but you're just not going to get the same texture. Even though the flavor of the bean will be the same, the overall outcome won't be quite as good. Carrot, this was actually not really filmed in order. I started this, earlier while the onions were caramelized or caramelizing, and just make them kind of small because you're going to want these to dissolve completely while it's cooking, and that'll happen if you do this version on low for a long period of time. It'll also dissolve if you're using any pressure cooker, any other kind, stovetop, whatever. I'm going to do the same thing here with the celery. I think I mentioned you can use sweet potato as well. I think not pictured here, I think, is the corn that I tend to use. That's something that I like a lot in this recipe. And the picture here, you can see that the cilantro and the lime, adding that last is important, because you'll cook the flavor, a lot of the volatile flavors, out of the lime, the cilantro. I don't know if you noticed, but just like I cut the carrot pretty small and the celery pretty small, I also cut the onion pretty small. And part of the reason is I want all of those to just dissolve in the beans, and you won't see them at all. It'll have a rich flavor. It'll even have a sweet flavor, and that's really the key to this. You don't want it so sweet that when you taste it, you think of sweetness, but you want to sort of, it'll just taste good. And so when you do the onion like that, it kind of, if you think of a French onion soup, that's a sweet soup. But there's not nearly as much onion as that, but there's enough really to give it really a rich flavor. And at the very end here, you want to put in the cilantro, put in the cocoa, put in the turmeric, mix it all up. And actually the lime juice as well. The lime is a pretty important piece of this. Gives it a really fresh kind of popping taste. And if you look at the bottom of this bean as I mix this, you can kind of see that, for this recipe, 6 cups of liquid over about 12 hours really gets it so that the liquid is mostly gone. There are different versions of this, and you can have a watery bean dish if you want to. This is meant to go on like a burrito or something. That's how I typically do it. And so it's just going to be kind of whole beans where it's done, good consistency, but there's really not much residual liquid left in this at all. And so I'm just kind of showing you at the bottom here just to show you how much is left of that 6 cups that you can see. It's really close to nothing. And these are silicone ice cube trays, and we use these all the time, and every time I run low on this, I will make a new batch of beans and fill up a new set of ice cube trays. And so when you're filling up, make sure to press down a lot, because any air pockets you leave tend to fill with water and then end up kind of watering down the bean overall. So smush it down quite a bit, scrape it all off, so when you stack them, you're not going to get a lot of freezing to the one above it. Just makes it a little bit harder to get out of there. I just wanted to show you how to do this, and so these are pretty cheap on Amazon, and just put them in the freezer, and you can get back to them whenever you have time. So in this case, it took me a week before I actually had time to take them off. Take them out like you would ice cubes. I put them into a gallon Ziploc freezer bags, and then whenever we want a burrito, then we'll take 4 cubes out, make a couple eggs, and then we have a delicious egg and bean burrito. And this is cheap, it's healthy, it's super easy, and so I've been making these for probably 15 years. So enjoy.